Hey, this has been weighing on me for a while, and I think it's time to get it off my chest. The whole situation with my family was beyond frustrating, but I never expected it would end up like this. I'm still kind of in shock, honestly. So sit back, because this is going to be one of those you won't believe it stories. First, a little bit about me. My name's Oliver, and I'm the older sibling. Growing up, I always felt like the one who had to do the heavy lifting in our family, while my younger brother, Liam, got away with everything. I'm 26 now, working a regular 9 to 5 job, and I'm still figuring things out, but I've always been the reliable one. I don't mind it, honestly. I was taught that hard work pays off, even if it's a slow burn. Liam, on the other hand, is 22, and let's just say he's never been a fan of hard work. If there's one thing Liam knows how to do, it's how to manipulate situations in his favor, and somehow, he's always managed to get everything handed to him on a silver platter. Whether it's new gadgets, designer clothes, or trips, our parents were always quick to give him what he wanted. Meanwhile, I was left to do the boring stuff, things like taking care of the house, running errands, and doing all the work that they didn't feel like dealing with. Our parents, Dad and Mom, were strict when it came to me. They always told me I had to earn my place, and that life wasn't going to be easy. It was their favorite line, honestly. I never really understood why they treated me differently than Liam. They'd always say they wanted me to be responsible and level-headed. Which, fine, I get that. But it was always on their terms. If they needed something done, it was me they'd turn to. If there was a big decision to be made, I had to take the lead. But when it came to Liam, he was treated like some kind of prince. No matter what he did, it was always like he could do no wrong. This dynamic was something I learned to deal with over the years. Sure, I didn't get all the flashy things, but I had something they didn't: independence. I had a job at 16, I worked my way through school, and I've always managed to keep things together. But Liam? He never lifted a finger. It drove me crazy, seeing how they'd bend over backward for him. But things really started to hit the fan around his graduation. It was a big deal for our parents. They made it out to be some kind of grand achievement. Liam had barely passed his classes. He scraped by. He never put in the effort, but they were so proud of him. And what did I get? Well, you'll find out. The day of the graduation celebration, we had a small family gathering. Nothing extravagant, but they sure made it sound like the world was watching. They had a cake with his name on it, balloons everywhere, and all sorts of decorations. It was as if this was the most important day of the year, and for them, I guess it was. I don't want to sound bitter, but it's hard not to when you've been in my position. It was like they were so focused on Liam that they didn't even consider the things I'd done. I kept things running smoothly around the house. I helped pay bills when Dad's job didn't cover everything. I dealt with the grocery shopping, the laundry, and all the other stuff that comes with keeping a household together. And then came the presents. Liam had gotten his shiny new car, a present our parents had barely been able to afford. In fact, I later found out they had taken out a loan to cover the cost. I wasn't angry about the car itself, but the fact that they couldn't afford it, yet they still went ahead and bought it for him. Well, that part stung, especially when they barely acknowledged the sacrifices I'd made. Then, it was my turn. I tried to push the feelings aside. I didn't want to be that guy, the one who complains just because he doesn't get a shiny gift. But what I got was, to put it lightly, a slap in the face. I sat down on the couch, waiting for my turn, trying to hide the anxiety bubbling up inside me. It was like I already knew what was coming. Mom smiled at me, but it wasn't the warm, loving smile I was used to. It felt different. Almost condescending in a way. "Oliver," she said, her voice soft, almost too sweet. "We know you're so responsible, and we just wanted to make sure you have what you need for your future. We thought this would be practical." I tried to smile back, trying to mask the frustration building inside me. I didn't want to seem ungrateful, but I was already bracing myself for disappointment. I had to keep it together. Dad handed me a small box. It felt light, and when I opened it, I wasn't prepared for what I saw. Inside the box was a stack of household cleaning supplies, paper towels, sponges, dish soap, and the like. My heart sank. There were no words. No words from me, at least. I stared at the contents for a few seconds, my mind trying to process it. "Mom." "Dad," I started, but my voice faltered. "What is this?" Dad chuckled, slapping his knee. "Well, Oliver, now you can be even more useful around the house. You've always been so responsible, and this is just another way to show how much you contribute." I blinked, trying to understand. Was this a joke? Liam, sitting next to me, was grinning ear to ear. He looked at me with this smug, almost mocking expression. Yeah, Ollie, now you can keep things nice and clean. You always seem to be the one doing the chores anyway. My stomach churned. I knew this was going to be bad, but I didn't expect it to sting this much. They were giving my brother a brand new car, and me cleaning supplies? I swallowed hard, but my throat felt tight, like I was choking on something I couldn't quite name. I stood up, not wanting to sit there any longer, not wanting to look at the pile of cleaning supplies in front of me. I'm going to head out for a bit, I said, my voice cold. I need some air. Without waiting for a response, I grabbed my jacket, packed a bag, and left the house. I didn't know what I was hoping for, but I didn't want to be there anymore. I could hear my parents calling after me, but I didn't look back. I don't know how long I walked that night, but it felt like hours. I just kept putting one foot in front of the other, not really caring where I was going. It wasn't until I reached a small bench near the park that I finally stopped to sit down, my mind racing. I should have been furious, and I was, but I was also tired. Tired of always being the responsible one, tired of being the one to do everything right, only to get ignored or dismissed. I took out my phone, scrolling through a few messages from friends, trying to distract myself from the mess that had just happened. I didn't even want to go back home, but where else could I go? The house was all I had, even though it felt more like a prison than a place of comfort. I finally decided to call a cab to take me to a friend's place, just to get some space. When I got there, I told my friend, Jake, everything that happened. Jake listened quietly, but I could see the frustration in his eyes. He knew what I'd been going through with my family. You don't deserve that, Oliver, Jake said. You've been busting your ass for years, and they just keep using you. You're not a damn maid. I let out a sigh, feeling the weight of the past few years hit me all over again. I don't know what to do anymore. I've given everything to them. And Liam? He doesn't appreciate anything. He's spoiled, and it's like they think he can do no wrong. Jake was quiet for a moment, and then he said something I hadn't really thought about. Why don't you leave? For real. Go get a job. Start over somewhere else. You don't need them, man. You've got this. It hit me like a ton of bricks. He was right. I didn't have to stick around. I didn't have to keep being their backup plan, the one they turned to when they needed help. It was hard to imagine leaving everything behind, but in that moment, it felt like it might be the only way to break free. I spent the night at Jake's, and when I woke up, I knew what I had to do. It wasn't just about the gift anymore. It was about my entire life, about the way my parents treated me compared to Liam. So, I packed a bag, grabbed what I needed, and went to my parents' house to let them know I was leaving. They weren't home at the time, which only made the whole situation feel even more like I was walking away from a chapter one could never go back to. When they got back, it didn't take long for them to realize something was off. I was halfway through the process of packing up my things when I heard their car pull into the driveway. My heart skipped a beat as the front door creaked open. Oliver. My mom's voice echoed down the hallway, sounding surprised. Where are you going? I walked into the living room, holding my bag. I'm leaving, Mom. What? Her voice faltered. Where are you going? You can't just leave like this. I kept my tone steady, but I could feel the tension building. I've been carrying this family for too long. It's time for me to go. You and Dad don't need me. Not really. You've always had Liam for everything else. The look on her face was one of disbelief, like she couldn't process what I was saying. Oliver, you know we depend on you. You've been so helpful, and now this. This is the thanks we get. I didn't let her guilt trip me this time. I've been helpful because you've never given me a choice. You've always expected me to clean up after everyone. Liam does whatever he wants, and you keep giving him everything. Well, I'm done. Dad stepped into the room, looking almost confused. What do you mean, you're done? You're going to leave the family? After everything we've done for you? You've done nothing for me, Dad, I replied, keeping my voice calm. Liam gets a car, and I get cleaning supplies. That's how much I mean to you. Mom's face twisted in something close to panic. You don't understand. We've been making sacrifices for your future. You're not seeing the bigger picture. I shook my head. No, Mom. I'm done seeing the bigger picture. You've never seen me. You've only seen what you can use me for. But I'm not doing this anymore. I turned to leave, but Liam stepped into the doorway, a smug expression plastered on his face. Wow, Ollie. Leaving already? Guess you can't handle the family spotlight, huh? I mean, I just got a brand new car for graduation. What do you have? A bag of cleaning supplies? He laughed, and I could feel my blood boiling. Shut up, Liam, I said through gritted teeth. You don't have a clue. Mom shot him a glare, but then turned back to me, her voice a bit more frantic. Where are you even going to go? You can't just leave us like this. I didn't answer her immediately. I simply walked out the door, leaving everything behind. It wasn't until I was in the cab, heading to a small apartment I'd rented that same morning, that I felt the weight of what I'd just done. For the first time in years, I felt free. The following year was a blur. I found a 9-to-5 job in sales just to keep things steady, but my real plan was always the side hustle. It took time, a lot of hard work, and plenty of late nights, but after a few months, I started seeing the results. I was making money online, not just a little, but enough to start thinking bigger. I was no longer dependent on my family, no longer living in the shadow of my brother. But as I started to succeed, that's when the call started. I had gone from living paycheck to paycheck, relying on my parents, to a self-sufficient adult with financial freedom. I wasn't a millionaire yet, but the sense of independence and control over my life was worth more than anything. It felt like a huge victory every time I checked my bank balance, seeing the numbers climb. But of course, as my success grew, so did the need for my family to reach out. It all started with a text from my mom. At first, it was casual. She was trying to sound like everything was normal. Hey, Oliver, how's the new place? I hope you're settling in well. Have you been able to keep busy with work? I could tell this was a thinly veiled attempt to see if I'd bite and talk about what I was doing. So, I responded, keeping it simple and vague. I'm doing well. Work's keeping me busy, but it's going good. That was it. A couple of days went by before I heard from her again. This time, it wasn't just a check-in. The tone was different. Oliver, your dad and I have been thinking. We're really proud of you. You've always worked hard, and we just wanted to tell you that we're here for you, no matter what. I could feel the tension in her words. It was almost like they were testing the waters, hoping to open the door for something more. I knew exactly what they wanted, but I kept my reply neutral. Thanks, Mom. I appreciate it. A week later, I got another message. This time, it wasn't from her, but from Liam. Hey, Ollie, hope you're doing all right. I know things are a bit tense between us, but I just wanted to check in. How's work going? I've been thinking about you. Liam thinking about me? That was new. He had never cared about anything except himself. I didn't want to be petty, but I also didn't want to pretend like everything was fine. So, I replied with the same vague answer I'd given Mom. Everything's good. Work's going well, and I'm staying busy. A couple of days later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was my mom calling. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. Hello, Oliver. Honey, it's Mom, she said, sounding almost sweet. I hope you're doing well. Your dad and I were just talking. We were wondering if you could come by soon. We really miss you. You know, it's not the same without you here. My stomach dropped. It felt like a trap. They hadn't missed me before, at least not in the way they were claiming. It had been months since I left, and all of a sudden, they wanted to act like they cared. I could practically hear the desperation in her voice. I don't know, Mom, I said, trying to sound neutral but not giving in. I've got a lot going on here. Things are different. She was quiet for a second, and I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. I waited for her response, knowing this was coming. Well, it's just that. With everything that's been going on, we've been struggling a little. You know, with your brother's car and all. And with the bills stacking up, it's been a lot for us lately. We could really use your help. There it was. I knew it. They had been in debt, taking out loans to buy Liam his car, and now they were struggling to keep up. They hadn't thought of how they would manage long term, and suddenly, they were remembering I existed. But it wasn't because they were concerned about me. It was because they needed something. My heart tightened. I don't know what you expect from me, Mom. I'm not coming back. I've built my life here. I heard her voice falter. We know you're doing well, Oliver. We just thought you could help us out a little, that's all. Just to get back on our feet. I didn't respond right away. I was processing what she was saying, how easily they expected me to just drop everything, return to the house, and fix their mess. Listen, Mom, I'm not coming back. You and Dad have made your choices. You decided to put everything into Liam. You can't just come to me when things get hard. You can't expect me to fix it. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then, finally, my mom spoke, her voice almost pleading. Oliver, please. We've made mistakes, but we're trying. We really need you. I wasn't sure what I felt anymore. Anger? Sympathy? Resentment? A mix of all of those. I had worked so hard to get away from that place, and now they were trying to manipulate me into coming back, to be their backup once again. I can't help you, I said, feeling my resolve solidify. I've worked too hard for this. I'm not going to put myself back in that situation. That was the first of many calls. They came more frequently over the next few weeks, each time more desperate. Mom and Dad, each with their own version of pleading, reminding me how much they needed me, how much they'd sacrificed for me. They even mentioned Liam, talking about how his grades were slipping now that he had the car and how he couldn't handle the pressure of adult life. But every time I refused, they pushed harder until the calls stopped coming. The silence was almost worse than the constant begging. I knew they were upset. I knew they were angry, but that didn't stop me from living my life. Then, one day, I got a message from Liam. This time, it was different. It wasn't just about checking in or saying he missed me. It was a cry for help. Oliver, I need you to help me. Things are getting out of hand. Dad's been really upset lately, and Mom, she doesn't know what to do. We're in serious trouble. I didn't respond right away. I wasn't sure if I should even reply. What did he want from me? What was he trying to pull? Finally, after a few minutes, I decided to send a short reply. What do you want from me, Liam? His response came quickly, and the urgency in his words was clear. I'm serious, Ollie. We're in debt. We can't handle the car payments. I don't know who else to turn to. I could feel my heart sink. This wasn't just about them anymore. This was about a family falling apart, and Liam, the one who'd been handed everything on a silver platter, was finally realizing how bad things had gotten. I sat there for a moment, staring at the message on my phone, my fingers twitching with frustration. Then, I typed out a reply. Liam, you don't get it, do you? This isn't my problem. The words were harsh, but I felt like I needed to say it. It wasn't just about money or material things anymore. It was about principles. I wasn't going to be their fallback, their savior. They'd put me in a position where I was the one who had to sacrifice everything. I wasn't going to let them do it again. I stared at the screen for a few more seconds before I added more. You and Dad put yourselves in this mess. I told you guys when I left, I was done. I'm not coming back to fix things for you. Don't ask me to. I stared at the message, feeling a strange sense of relief. I had to stand my ground. There was no way I was going to let them guilt trip me into coming back. Just as I hit send, my phone rang. It was from my mom. The last thing I wanted to do was talk to her right now, but the call kept ringing, and it seemed like I was going to have to face it. I picked up with a deep sigh. Hello, Oliver, she started, and I could already hear the crack in her voice. She was trying to keep her composure, but the desperation was obvious. I don't know what to do. You need to come back. Your dad, he's not handling things well. He's been so upset, Ollie. I'm just worried about him. And Liam, well, he's not doing well at all. His grades are slipping. He doesn't know how to manage everything. It's just getting worse. I clenched my jaw, my patience wearing thin. Mom, I don't care about their problems. I have my own life now. I told you I wouldn't come back. You chose to spoil Liam and ignore me for years. Now, when things are hard, you want me to drop everything and fix it. No. There was silence on the other end of the phone. I could tell she was hurt by my words, but I wasn't about to apologize. Not this time. Mom, you need to figure this out on your own, I continued, my voice growing more firm. I'm not responsible for your financial mistakes. I'm not your backup. Her voice trembled. I'm not asking you to fix everything, Oliver. We just thought maybe you could help us out. Just a little. It's hard, and we don't know who else to turn to. I could feel my temper rising. You thought you could just ignore me when I needed help, and now that you're struggling, you think I owe you? What happened to your perfect family that didn't need me? The one where everything was supposed to be fine as long as Liam had everything handed to him. Her voice cracked. It's not like that, Ollie. We've made mistakes, but we're trying to do better now. Please, just come home. I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat. I'm not coming back, and I'm certainly not going to keep bailing you out. You can't just call me when it's convenient for you. You made your choices. Oliver, please, she started, but I interrupted. No, I've heard this all before. I'm not your solution. You want to fix things? Start with Liam. He's the one who's got the luxury car, the one who's never worked a day in his life. You want to know what adulting looks like? Stop using me as your crutch and figure it out yourself. I could hear her sobbing now, the tears coming through in her words. You don't understand, Ollie. You don't understand how hard it's been. Please. I felt a pang of guilt in my chest, but I pushed it away. I couldn't let myself fall back into their trap. I understand perfectly, I said, my voice hardening. But I'm not going to give in. I'm not going to put my life on hold to fix yours. You need to face the consequences of your choices. I hung up before she could say anything else, letting out a long breath. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the frustration that had been building up over the last few months. They had always seen me as someone who could be manipulated, someone who could be pushed into action whenever they needed me. But not anymore. I knew it wouldn't be the end of it. I knew they'd try again. My mom had always been persistent when she needed something, and my dad was the type to sulk and try to guilt-trip me. But I wasn't going to give in. I had worked too hard to get to where I was, and I wasn't going to let them drag me back into that life. About a week later, as I was getting ready to leave work, I saw a notification pop up on my phone. It was from my dad. "We've been talking, and we've made some changes. We're sorry for how things have been. Your mom and I, we just want to help you. We miss you, and we need you. Please, Oliver, come home. Let's fix things. We'll work together." I stared at the message, my heart hammering in my chest. I wasn't sure what to feel. A part of me wanted to be angry, but the other part of me wondered if they truly meant it. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I sat there in my apartment, replaying everything in my mind, the way they had treated me, how they had never shown a fraction of this supposed love when I needed it. Now, after everything, they were suddenly begging for my help? I wasn't buying it. A few days passed, and I didn't hear from them again. I started to think they might have finally given up. Maybe they had learned their lesson. Maybe they realized that they could no longer rely on me, that I wasn't their emotional bank account, their last resort. Then, another message came, but this time, it wasn't from my mom or dad. It was from Liam. "You're really going to leave us hanging like this? What's the point of family if you don't help when we need it? You've been selfish. We're struggling, and you're just going to let us drown? I thought you were better than this." There it was again, the manipulation, the guilt, the same old tactics. I wasn't surprised that it was Liam this time. He had always been the one to play the victim when things didn't go his way, the one who thought the world should revolve around him. But this time, I wasn't going to let it work. I sat down, typing out my response slowly, making sure every word hit the mark. "You don't get it, Liam. I'm not your backup, and I'm not your savior. You're the one who always gets everything handed to you, and now that things aren't perfect, you want to blame me for your problems. I don't owe you anything. You're grown, just like I am. It's time you learn to stand on your own 2 feet. You've had your life handed to you on a silver platter, and now you want me to come back and fix everything? That's not how this works. Don't ever contact me again unless you're ready to be honest about what you've done." I hit send, my finger trembling slightly. I'd never been more sure of a decision in my life. But that wasn't the end of it. A few weeks later, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't pick it up, but something told me I had to. When I answered, it was my dad on the other end. "Oliver, we know we messed up," he said, his voice more fragile than I'd ever heard it. "Your mom and I, we've been trying to fix things. And we're sorry. We were wrong. We don't want you to think we only care about what you can do for us. We want our family back. We want you back." The words hit me harder than I expected. There was a part of me that wanted to believe them, to think that maybe, just maybe, they were truly sorry. But the logical part of my mind reminded me of everything they had done to me, how they had taken me for granted, used me, manipulated me into being the one to clean up their messes. I had been their backup plan for far too long, and I was done. "I'm not coming back, Dad," I said, my voice steady. "Not now, not ever. You've had your chance, and you've used it all up. You can't just expect me to forget everything just because you're sorry now. You made your choices. I'm making mine." There was a long silence on the other end, and I could hear the sound of him breathing heavily. I understand," he finally said, his voice defeated. "But please, just know we're here if you ever change your mind." I hung up the phone and sat there in the quiet of my apartment, feeling a strange sense of relief. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was truly free. It's been a year now since that last conversation. My parents have tried to contact me a few times, but I've stayed firm. I'm not going to let them back into my life, and I'm not going to feel guilty about it. Over the past year, I've been building something for myself, something that will ensure I never have to rely on anyone again. My income is growing steadily, and in a few more months, I'll be at the point where I can truly call myself financially independent. And to be honest, a part of me knows that when they find out I've gotten to that point, they'll come knocking again. But this time, I won't be there. So, Reddit, what do you think? Am I wrong for refusing to help them? I'm honestly torn between feeling like I did the right thing and feeling guilty about leaving them behind. It's hard because they're family, but after everything, I just don't know if I can forgive them. Let me know your thoughts.